the fundamentals of photography, and then we're going to go over how to get the perfect exposure to for our cameras. Okay, so there are several types of cameras that we use in photography. Um, a quick Google search, and you can actually see a few. And I'm going to go ahead and share my screen briefly to share with you a few of the cameras that we actually use. We have a variety of cameras from the point and shoots that we remember from the early 2000s to the instant cameras. A lot of us may know them as Polaroids. We also have our rather new mirrorless cameras, and we have our DSLRs. DSLRs standing for digital single lens reflective camera. And why is it called a DSLR or a digital reflective single lens camera? I can actually show you with mine. This camera, once you take off the lens, actually has a mirror inside of it. After that mirror, there's a sensor. The mirror actually reflects. It's the single mirror that reflects what the lens sees into the sensor here. That's where we get the term digital single lens reflective. Uh, it shoots right back into the sensor that's back here, being focused with the light being focused by this guy, which is known as a lens. For DSLRs, they do come with detachable lenses, so which comes with a multitude of different effects to help with your photography. So now we're going to go over some of the fundamentals of photography, and we actually have five. Those fundamentals of photography are light, color, moment, composition, and subject slash distance. We can also think of that as our focal points or focal length. Let's explore some of that more. I'm actually going to be showing you some of my own photography work that I have done over the years. Um, you can see some of this on my Flickr account, and you can also see some of this photography on my own website. So let's actually go to my Flickr account first. This is some of the work, and let me make sure I'm also sharing my screen. This is some of the work that I have already done so far. Um, let's first go into light. Light is what every camera needs in order to work correctly. Without light, your your subject or what you're trying to capture simply will not be captured. All cameras work on the principle of light being reflected off of this subject into the camera and being captured either by film or by digital means. Light can also influence the mood of a piece of artwork. For instance, we have this photo where it's a little bit brighter. You see a little bit more of the scene compared to the one before it, which is a little bit darker, a little bit moodier, and a little bit more mysterious. Um, Light can help shape the face of an individual. It can help elicit certain feelings in people, and it can also uh, help hide or conceal things that the photographer may have not wanted to be in the shot. The next part that we're going to go over is color. Color sets a mood or feeling for your artwork. Uh, we use the color wheel in photography a lot, especially to ensure that we're using opposing colors in order to ensure that the uh, that the um, that the subject that we're getting is uh, is catching to the eye, and that it's and that it draws your attention in. Let's look at one of those said pieces. Give me 1 second to make sure. Okay, we're still awesome. So let's look at this piece here. Here we have blue and we have gold over top of it. Blue and gold, or where gold sits on the color wheel, which is very close to orange, are what you call contrasting or complementary colors. And because of that blue and gold, they help each other to stand out. For instance, if you look at I believe if I go this way, oh, went too far. Here we go. If you look at these at the cake, the two composing colors on the side, along with the pop of white, helps to make the cake stand out. There's another force working here that's a part of our fundamentals of photography, but we'll get to that a little later in in our um, our class today. But here we're using colors to help to make the subject pop. Here we are using our colors. We're using color science or to help uh, have this person feel a certain way with her blue skin. Another ad. And lastly, we have this one here to that's very warm to help to make this person feel very inviting, warm and inviting in the picture. The next part of our fundamental is moment. When we're taking pictures or when we're taking photographs, we want to make sure that we are capturing a moment. A saying that a saying in photography that happens that is said often is when you're taking your picture, are you capturing a moment or are you capturing a Polaroid or capturing a snapshot? We want to make sure that we are capturing a moment when we take our pictures. For instance, if I there we go. In a picture such as this, several things can be conveyed. For instance, what is the story behind the graffiti that's being exhibited here? Because the graffiti is actually in focus, it helps to draw to inform the audience more about the actual the person and actually the scene. I want you to compare that to something like this, which is a wonderful headshot, but nonetheless a snapshot of just of just one person. Going to my website, we can even look at a picture like this, where our subject is sitting up against a wall, graffiti wall, with a with something in the background with the Maryland colors, and you see while he's in focus in the foreground, you can still see what's going on in the back. This captures the moment of what's happening, even down to um, his pants that are a bit graffiti like in the paint splatter that's on them. This now leads me to our next part, or our next part of the fundamental, which is composition. Composition uh, takes in parts several different things. These elements are also seen in fine art. Those elements are line, shape, curve, texture, pattern, color, and negative space. Looking at the current photo that we have up here, of course, we have different lines that help lead you to what's going on in the background of the picture, as you can see, evident with the lines here. Um, they also do the opposite way of help leading you towards the subject, which is the person in front. There's various textures that are that are happening in this photo, from the actual smooth skin of the individual to the more textured fabric of his clothing, and also the his background. There's also, and this is especially important if you're using photography for advertising. There is also negative space right here. So if he was to use this for, let's say, an album cover or a flyer or poster, he has the ability to use that negative space to put information in. The use of negative space, by the way, can be very important in the composition of your photography to help elicit various emotions. By cramming your subject into one corner, with them facing that corner, it can help them to feel uh, shut in or claustrophobic. To have your person your subject actually facing the opposite way, we're into the negative space. It helps to give them space. If this helps with, say, royalty, or with royalty, or someone of importance. This is another amazing uh picture to help illustrate some of those composition points that we talked about before. The flowing of her dress, compared to the rather smoothness of the background in the foreground. Even the floor, the texture of the floor, in contrast to her actual dress. We also use line to help establish where the floor is. There's a sharp line that is being cut throughout the bottom to help establish her on the floor, so that she doesn't feel like she's floating. Looking at some other another one, compared the texture that's on the stage that she's on, compared to the texture of the skin and even the boots, helps to illustrate. And again, using the negative space, using lighting to help tell the story of the subject, where it's just barely being casted on her. Even her boots are partially in shadow, helping to lure the actual the audience into what this artwork could possibly have or possibly mean. Next, I want to talk about your subject's distance and focal length. Um, and we can actually start with this one. This is actually a picture that I took for breast cancer awareness at Hamilton Elementary Middle School. Of course, as you can see, it was a giant pink ribbon was made with students, with supporting students, and also uh, um, some breast cancer survivors in this shot. Um, the distance that's actually being shown here helps to illustrate the the connection or unity of all of the subjects that are in this photo, because it's not just focusing on one person or one person's story, but the collective story within the for these students and for um, these people, compared to a closer shot where we have here the subject is very close to the camera, so that we know that that the the purpose of this photo is just on that person. We also have a blurred background, which helps to lessen the the amount of noise that will be taken away, that will take away from the subject, which is the young boy here. Your focal length also helps you to help separate your subject from the background. For instance, this type of focal length would be a fairly long one. Um, you would use something like a f point, and we'll get to what f stops are. Of something similar to a f 5 or f.8, to help to get some of that information to not be lost in the background, compared to something like what we have here, which is a bit more blurred, which might have a smaller f-stop. So since we're talking about f-stop, we're going to talk about actually setting up your exposure. And I want to actually bring it back to me. All right. So when creating a picture, especially on a DSLR, there are three things at play to help you better focus your picture on your subject. Those things, those three things are your ISO, which is the sensitivity your camera has to light, your f-stop, um, which is your focal stop, which basically tells you about how big or small the iris of your lens is. And then you have your shutter speed. And your shutter speed is literally how fast the how long the actual sensor is exposed to light. All right. So let's go with ISO. For most DSLR cameras, and you can even this is actually similar, or you can unlock these features in cameras such as your phone, um, you have your ISO, which starts at 100, which is the most unsensitive it can be. There are some cameras that go lower than that to even ISO. I think the lowest I've heard is actually ISO 64, all the way up to an ISO of several thousand. I think the most I've heard is 128,000. Remember, the higher the ISO, the more sensitive is to light. So, for instance, if I was to use an ISO of 100, my camera would not be that sensitive to light. It would be it would have to be rather bright. We use ISO 100 in some flash photography, and we also use it in sunny conditions because it's so bright. Um, and then, depending on your situation, your how much light you have, you will boost that uh, that light sensitivity up. Uh, I recommend personally never to max out your camera sensibility, because then it will introduce what's called grain. And grain is if you ever seen a snowy effect on some pictures, or even some video, that's what you would call grain or noise. Okay. The next part is your camera's f-stop, or your focal stop. And what a focal stop is, I wish I could show you in this camera. I might be able to. Every lens has a set of blades. And what those blades do is it acts like your eye. So uh if you were to increase the f-stop, it would shrink the eye down and make it less sensitive to light. Compare on the opposite end, if the f-stop was rather low, it will actually open up that eye and allow more light to be able to hit the sensor. Um, this has multiple effects. One effect that it has is making is to the sharpness of your actual picture. If your if your focal length is rather high, and by high I mean somewhere between f uh, 5 to f8, there will be a lot in the frame that will be in focus for at the for the picture. For instance, and if I can share my screen, here we go. This picture here was actually shot at a resolution of f f5.6, so that we can have everything in focus from the top of her head to the bottom of our feet, including the graffiti in the background. Um, Comparatively, we have other f stops. If we were to make it lower, this photo was actually shot with a f-stop of 3.5. Now remember, f-stops are also relative to the distance. The further your background is, the more you're able to actually blur it with your f-stop. Of course, using what's called depth of field. When you use this trick in order to help blur the background, the blurriness that you see in the background is known as bokeh, which is Bokeh. Again, it's called bokeh. The last part of our triangle in developing a perfect exposed picture is our shutter speed. So our shutter speed is literally what the name actually sounds like it entails. How fast or how slow the shutter is moving. These are done all the way from 20. It can be as long as 20 minutes for some stellar photography. If you're taking pictures of the stars, of course, at nighttime, you would need that long duration in order to actually um, capture that to capture the light, enough light from them in order for it to show up. Compared to if you're in a bright stadium and you're trying to capture a moment that's happening quickly, you actually boost your shutter speed to fractions of a second, like hundreds of fractions of a second. Um, when we're using regular, I would say just on the go photography, we would usually use a shutter speed of anywhere between 1/30th of a second to 1/50th of a second. That means that in 1 second, the shutter can actually go up and go down 30 times. Um, and again, shutter speed is literally this sound that you hear here, which is the opening and closing of the actual shutter, like the shutter on a window opening to allow the sensor to grab light and then closing it back up to stop the exposing process. When you put all three of these together, you have the exposure triangle, um, which takes some time to get used to. There are some tricks that if you actually uh, sign up for the course, I can actually be able. It will actually be my pleasure to teach you. However, there are some tricks and tips in order to help with setting up your perfect exposure. Um, but remember, whenever you're setting up your exposure, you want, depending on which or how you or what you want to capture, you want the lowest ISO possible, with the lowest f-stop possible, and the lowest shutter speed possible. And again, uh, every every situation is different. Depending on your depending on if you're capturing something that's going really fast compared to very slow, is your subject standing still, or are they on the go? Is your subject well lit, like I am currently, or are they in a very dim place? All of this plays into the different parts of your exposure. Um, I that is actually all that I have for you now. Again, I hope everyone has opportunity or enjoy being able to tune in for uh, this open house class. I hope and I look forward to being able to see your amazing faces for our photography class. Please be on the lookout for our flyer to help join. You can also visit us at the MIFAL Academy website in order to sign up for the classes. Again, thank you so much for tuning in. And I believe I'm going to go ahead and turn it back over.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for virtual open house. Thank you so much, Mr. Thompson-Shaw, for your incredible job in walking us through photography class and giving us so many tips. So we're so excited to have you. If anybody is interested, we are available for registration. The link is in the chat. Also, the link should be on whatever post you clicked on to get here. So, thank you again for joining us. We have our culinary arts class starting in about 30 minutes. So you don't want to miss that. All of our instructors are incredible. Yesterday we had Mr. Tony to come in and he did an amazing musical theater workshop. If you didn't see it, you need to head over to our YouTube page and check it out right now. We also had a performance ear training workshop that was presented by myself. So that would be posted a little bit later on. And tonight's session with Mr. Thompson-Shaw will also be on the YouTube and the Facebook and Instagram pages for MIFAL Arts Academy. All right, so we are so excited again to both have him and have that level of expertise. And we were so excited to have you with us tonight. So thank you again, and we will see everybody in about 30 minutes. Get ready. All right.